In the lead up to the P4G Seoul Summit this weekend, one area that's been in the spotlight is a business paradigm shift in the era of ESG and green technology. Now, during the Green Future Week this week, global thinkers, policymakers, and businesses will be discussing various ways to collaborate on ESG based on the latest trends in green business and come up with concrete measures to achieve environmental, social, and corporate governance goals. But to discuss South Korea-U.S. partnership as well as business partnership in the realm of ESG, we have live in the studio James Kim, Chairman and CEO of the American Chamber of Commerce. James, it's great to see you here in the studio today.
Thank you very much.
Now, President Moon inched closer to his goal of making South Korea a global hub for vaccine manufacturing by forging a strategic vaccine partnership with the U.S. during his summit talks last week. What significance does this hold for both countries from an economic standpoint?
Well, clearly the meeting between President Biden and President Moon was really historic. In fact, I look at it as a big win-win for both leaders and also for both countries. Obviously, Korea-U.S., they enjoy an ironclad partnership, and this kind of symbolizes the real significance of the two countries today. And when you look at what the two countries are prioritizing today, it's about recovery from the pandemic and getting as many vaccines as possible to the citizens of both countries. And for us in the U.S., it's very optimistic. So many citizens of the U.S. now have vaccines, and I think I'm seeing a lot of opening up of the U.S. economy. People are going to sports, auditoriums, they're enjoying barbecues, and they're, for the first time, enjoying good family time together. So it's very optimistic. But here in Korea, we obviously still don't have the kind of quantities of vaccines. And this partnership that U.S. and Korea announced, I think is going to be really, really significant. And I think looking at Korea's hurry mentality, I think Korea can execute as soon as we get these vaccines available to Koreans. And clearly companies like Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, they're great American companies, and combining it with Korea's logistics system, I think we're going to be in very good shape.
Yeah, we are all keeping our fingers crossed. Now, in a recently published contribution, James, you yourself mentioned that it's important for the Moon administration to collaborate with the Biden administration to take a different approach to a post-pandemic economic recovery. What do you mean by that?
I think we have seen that in the U.S. things are working really, really well. And as I said before, this partnership on the vaccine is going to help accelerate how we get back on track from the economy side. But as we wait for the system to kind of pan itself out, there are some short-term things that we can do. And I'm talking about things like the mutual recognition of vaccines. When you look at Americans who are vaccinated in the U.S. today, the 2 shots or 1 from Johnson & Johnson, these people are pretty safe. And that's the reason why they're able to travel wherever they want. But unfortunately, when they come to South Korea, they're still under a 14-day quarantine. And what I really worry about is the 840,000 employees in the travel and tourism industry here. The more we can get these people who are fully vaccinated come to South Korea, the more the economy will open up.
Right.
And obviously, we have a lot of big meetings going on between companies, between governments. And I'm a big fan of asking the Korean government to help expedite this recognition of vaccines that really do work.
Yeah, I do agree with you on that. Now, a South Korean tech giant's vital role as an investor and a strategic partner for the U.S. was evident during the summit talks this time around. Between Presidents Moon and Biden, they made somewhere between $25 billion and $39 billion U.S. dollars worth of investments in chips and battery industries. How significant is this in South Korea-U.S. collaboration?
Well, $39 billion that the 4 CEOs committed is a huge, huge amount. In fact, I had a chance to really go through the set of meetings that President Moon and President Biden had. I wish I was there like a few years ago, but I could not make it this trip. But you heard President Biden say, thank you, thank you, thank you, 3 times. He also had the 4 CEOs stand up, be recognized by the whole world.
Right.
And that's showing a lot of appreciation. It again shows you the ironclad relationship that Korea and the United States enjoys together. And I think as Korea should be very proud of these new technology that they lead in. For a big country like the United States to fully embrace, accept the technology. And obviously a lot of job creation in the U.S. too, with new technology that's good for both countries. And I am very confident that U.S. will continue to do a lot of great things in South Korea as well. It's a great market for U.S. to invest in South Korea. And that's one of AMCHAM's primary missions, to help U.S. companies succeed in Korea, and for us to help South Korean companies invest in the United States. And it makes it a very powerful relationship, because we all know that China is a big trade partner for South Korea, where 26% of all exports from South Korea go to China, whereas in the U.S., it's only 14.5%. So because diversification is very important, why not do more in America and not put all your eggs in one basket?
Now, speaking of AMCHAM's mission, you recently launched a committee to oversee ESG goals. Give us a brief intro of that, and what specific ESG initiatives are being made by U.S. firms in South Korea that are being led by AMCHAM?
Sure. You know, it's clear that ESG is no longer just a buzzword, but it's something that we all really have to live and practice how we operate our businesses today. So when AMCHAM got very involved with this concept of ESG, so important for Korea, so important for globalization of both countries, we said, you know, we need to do something. We need to take a leadership position. So what do? We formed an ESG committee. We had overwhelming response from our members. And we came up with 3 CEOs who said, let me run the ESG committee. And I'm talking about the CEO from 3M, CEO from P&G, and a CEO from Dow Chemical. 3 CEOs who are leading ESG for their companies. And as we all know, U.S. companies have taken the lead on ESG. So these 3 CEOs provide a lot of experience for all of us. And even at AMCHAM, you know, we feel that D&I is very important. We had one of our member companies called Morgan Phillips, who did a D&I survey. And it really showed that when it comes to diversity, U.S. companies are really far ahead even of the Korean companies today. And we learned a lot. And one thing I'm very proud of is at AMCHAM, we now have 8 female CEOs who are on the board of governors. And this is a record high for us. So when we have female leaders who are also committed to ESG, and our entire membership who can now learn about ESG, I think it's a powerful opportunity.
Very powerful. And last but not least, very briefly, the very first U.S.-Korea ESG Forum was held earlier this month. How do you assess Korean companies' efforts towards ESG? And like you said, since U.S. companies are a little ahead of that, how are U.S. companies helping South Korean firms in materializing these goals?
Yeah, I just want to state that I think Korean companies are also doing a very good job. And it's led by companies like Samsung, LG, Hyundai, and SK. These companies are really doing a good job with ESG too. But U.S. companies had a head start. So I think that what this forum was trying to do was trying to forge best sharing of practices, come up with some benchmarks, because when you were to ask a typical CEO, how do you folks do on ESG? They may have some qualitative terms, but at the end of the day, we need to have some real metrics that people can stand by. And that's the reason why at this ESG forum, I was really surprised at the big audience we had. And I think this is going to be our biggest committee at AMCHAM for many years. And I can tell you that our friends from the U.S. Embassy, they always ask me about ESG. So when we have our friends from the U.S. Embassy ask about it, we're taking it very seriously as well. And we have both President Moon and President Biden. They're both committed to ESG as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And we'll see more of that discussed during the summit this weekend.
Yes.
James Kim, Chairman and CEO of AMCHAM, many thanks for sharing your story with us and taking your time to come out here into the studio. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.